Welcome back to another Python tutorial. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at for loops. And one use of for loops is to repeat a section of code by a certain number of times. So let's go ahead and start by taking a look at that use. So to make a for loop, we're going to say for I in range. Inside the parentheses will be the number of times that we want to repeat the code. So let's go ahead and start with just 3. At the end of your for loop, just like with if statements, you need a colon. And then in the indented region below the for loop is where it's going to repeat that section of code. So let's go ahead and start off easy. We're just going to print off the word loop. And it'll repeat this 3 times. So quickly, just to go through what we have. This letter I right here is just a temporary variable. It doesn't really matter what you put here. And we're going to be taking a look at different uses of that later in the video. Range 3. This controls how many times the section is repeated. So if you want to repeat the section 5 times, then you would just change this number to 5. You can also say a different range, so something like between 3 and 7. And we'll be taking a look at that later on in the video. For now though, we're just going to leave it like this, and let's go ahead and run the program. So we see when we run our program, we have this statement here, this print, and then the message loop, and we see that's repeated 3 times. If I change this to 7 and rerun the program, then it does the same thing, but this time it prints off loop 7 times. Another thing you can do is you can actually print off that temporary variable. So if I want to print the variable I, we can take a look and see what's happening with that. And I see that I get the numbers going from 0 to 6. So what it's doing, every time it loops through this statement, it's printing off the value stored for I. And in programming, most of the time it starts counting at 0. So we have it starting at 0. And then it goes all the way to 6. So whatever number you put in here, it'll print from 0 all the way up to 1 less than that number. So if I choose the number 5, it'll go from 0 to 4. Okay, you can also do operations with this. So if I do I plus 1, now it'll print from 1 to 5. And I see I have the numbers 1 through 5. So like I mentioned before, you can also do different ranges inside the parentheses here. So for example, if I want to run this from 3 to 9, the first number is your start, the second number is your stop. So now what it's going to do, it's going to take the numbers between 3 and 9 and add 1 to them. So if I run my program, I'll see that I have the numbers 4 through 9. So what it's doing, it's starting with 3, that's how I get 4, and then it runs up to 1 less than the stop number. So in that case, it'll run all the way up to 8 plus 1, which gives us 9 down here. Okay, so this is one use of for loops. You can repeat a section of code a certain number of times. So probably a more useful feature of for loops is being able to loop through a sequence of objects. So what we're going to do now is we're going to introduce something new. We're going to introduce what is called a list. And you can store a list inside of a variable just like values. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say driver speeds. And we're just going to make a list of numbers. You create a list with square brackets. So inside of our list here, let's go ahead and just define some speeds. So we'll say 34, 57, 46, 45, and 78. You close your list with another square bracket. Next, what I'm going to do is define a variable. So I'm going to say speed limit is equal to 45. So now we're going to be using a for loop and some conditional statements to check to see whether our driver speed is greater than, less than, or equal to our speed limit. So what I'm going to do first is start with that for loop. So I'm going to say for. This time I'm going to choose a different name for that temporary variable. So I'm going to say speed in driver speeds. So this is a little bit different than what we did before. So basically what it's doing, it's creating a temporary variable called speed. And that is going to be used to loop through all the different objects in driver speeds. So the different objects in driver speeds would just be the different numbers. So 34, 57, 46, 45, and 78. And the first thing we're going to do is just go and print off each item in this list. So to do that, we're going to print speed. And if we do that, we should have a list printed out of the different speeds that are listed in driver speeds. And I see when I run the code that I have the different speeds that are listed in my list here. Okay, so now what we're going to do is use conditional statements to check to see whether it is greater than, less than, or equal to my speed limit. So the first one I'm going to say if speed is double equals for comparison. If that's equal to speed limit. So what I'm going to say is correct speed. Okay, so if I run this code, what it's going to do, it's going to use this temporary variable to go through each object in the list, and it's going to see if that object is equal to my speed limit. If it is equal, then it's going to print off the message, correct speed. So looking through this list here, only one number is equal to the speed limit, so I should just see this print message once. And that's what I see. I have the correct speed printed once because there's only 145 in my list. So let's go ahead and add a couple things to our conditional statements to cover the other cases. So we could have less than or greater than the speed limit. So we're going to say else if speed is less than speed limit. We're going to print too slow. And lastly, we're going to say else. We're going to print too fast. Okay, so what it's doing for each object in my list here is going to be checking to see whether it's equal to, less than, or greater than my speed limit. And then depending on which one it's true for, it'll print off that corresponding statement. So looking through there, I should have this one should print off too slow. This one should print off too fast, correct speed, and too fast. So let's go ahead and take a look and make sure it's working. So for the first object, 34, it's saying it's too slow. The second one, it's too fast. Third one, it's too fast. The fourth one, it's the correct speed. And the last one, it's too fast. So in this video, we took a look at two different ways to use for loops. One way was just to repeat a section of code, and the other way was to loop through a sequence of objects, for example, the objects in the list, and then we use conditional statements to check to see if certain conditions were met. Okay, so this is going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned for the next one.